Well, taboo or not taboo? That is the question. Canada and the United States are set to battle in women's hockey during a tense time that has been seeing fans boo the singing of American anthems at sporting events. The two nations face off tonight in Halifax as part of the rivalry series, a 5-game series put on by Hockey Canada and USA Hockey that wraps up Saturday in Prince Edward Island. The Halifax match, the first in Canada since the series began in November, will be played at a time when political tensions between Washington and Ottawa reach new highs. So my question is this, and one of the things that I'll ask you, but one of the questions that I'll get you to weigh in on when we open the phone lines: if you attend tonight, will you boo or not boo during the national anthem? And I would implore you to not boo and show some class. And really, though, what's the point of booing the American Star Spangled Banner? I don't really see any point to it at all. I get it that people are upset and people want to vent. I understand the appeal of that. But in all reality, who are you expressing your displeasure to? The players themselves, they have nothing to do with any of this. Absolutely nothing to do with this. And the performer singing the song, singing the anthems, they have nothing to do with any of this. And I would suggest that anybody who goes to this game tonight and boos during the national anthem, and there will be some, I am suggesting that you should grow up. I know that sounds perhaps a little harsh, but it's honestly how I feel. I don't think that you are achieving anything other than making a fool of yourself by doing so. So, what are your thoughts on this? National anthem, taboo or not taboo? And also, what about national anthems at sporting events in general? Is it something that you would miss if they just stopped doing it? I know that people have a visceral reaction when it comes to sports, in particular hockey, and if you change anything about hockey, or people are very traditional, but would you miss it if they stopped doing national anthems at hockey games and baseball games and basketball games and whatever? Would you miss it at all? And I would suggest that you probably wouldn't even notice it. Likely not even notice it. So taboo or not taboo, that is the question. And I am suggesting, imploring people, admonishing people, I guess, to use that type of vernacular, to not boo tonight during the hockey game and just enjoy the game and applaud the players and applaud the performance as well. Now, that all said, I think that there are ways to express and show your displeasure about what's going on with the United States and Donald Trump and tariffs and all of it. And you can exercise your displeasure by not buying American or not traveling to the United States or buying Canadian. There are many other ways you can express or get your point across other than going boo, boo while somebody's singing at a game, before a game. I think it's childish. Just my take, as I always say. Lots of other things we can get to as well. I've got in the pile. Donald Trump, I mean, my gosh, it just never stops. He says no American soldiers would be needed to carry out his proposal for the U.S. to take over the Gaza Strip and redevelop it. It's almost like he says things, and you almost think like this must be an AI-generated thing, or there's got to be some type of misinformation or something. But then you realize, no, he actually said this, and he means it. In a post on his Truth social platform, Trump says Gaza would be turned over to the U.S. by Israel at the conclusion of fighting. He added that Palestinians would be, quote, resettled in a far safer and more beautiful community with new and modern homes in the region. Israel's defense minister says he has instructed the army to prepare plans for large numbers of Palestinians to leave Gaza in line with Trump's proposal. I mean, this is just, it's absolutely scary stuff, folks. It just is, in my humble opinion. So again, some things that you can talk about when we open the phone lines between 11 and 12. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. We appreciate it very much. And, of course, thanks, as always, to Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass at the control boards, doing a fine job, as always. Now joining me for a chat, Tony Mancini, a deputy mayor, represents District 6, Dartmouth East, Burnside. Tony, hello.
Hi, Todd. Stay warm?
Yeah, I'm trying, man. You?
It's cold outside, man, but I'm staying warm, man.
I know. I think we're getting wimpy. We're becoming whipped here in Canada. We're not used to any of this cold snap type thing, are we?
Without question. I grew up in Cape Breton, and, we were outside all the time, and the lake froze over in December, and I do less of that now, and our winters have been mild, so when it gets cold, I think we are getting wimpier.
Indeed. Okay, first, I do want to talk to you about a couple of things, but first I want to get to the budget deliberations and the $1.3 billion city budget. 7.6% is what is needed in order to meet the needs of your budgetary requirements here. What are your thoughts on this? Obviously, the taxpayers, ratepayers don't want to hear any of this. I know it's unpopular. What's your message to people?
Yeah, first of all, I've seen a number of media outlets report that council is asking for that 7.6% increase. Council's not asking for that. Right now, at the start of the process, staff are coming forward to maintain the services and the growth that we need at 7.6%. It's the starting point. No one wants their property taxes to be raised. Look, I have a very modest home. I don't want my taxes to be raised also. Last year, I can't remember exactly. I think last year the starting point was maybe 14% or something like that. And I brought forward a motion during the budget deliberations that, all right, go back to the drawing board and come back with a 4% budget. What would that look like? And we ended at 6.2%, I think it was, or 6.5%. So it's the starting point. So I know it's tough. People are struggling, and everything is going up. Food's going up. Gas is going up. The fear of what's happening in the States, as you alluded to in your introduction, is a factor. There's no rubber stamping going on. There's lots of discussions going on, Todd. How do we deal with it? Are we prepared to cut services or not hire people? And some of those conversations have already begun. So we're just at the beginning. Yesterday was a conversation around the capital budget. We finish that up hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll move to operations.
Okay, so what's your instinct telling you here? Do you think that you'll be able to shave off some of this increase?
Yeah, I'm certainly hope so that we can get that number down lower. I know the mayor is talking about zero, and there have been times, even my short time on council, where we were at 0 or 1% or 2%, and I'm hopefully we can get it down below that 7.6%. But there's a lot of work in front of us, and I encourage your listeners that no other order of government makes this offer. You can come to council either virtually or rather budget. You can come to budget committee either virtually or in person and speak and share your opinion and support or lack of support. No other order of government does that, and we do it, and we do listen. Some people say we don't listen, but we do, and I think it's important that either groups or individuals do that.
Yeah, there are some things that are out of your control as a council. Like there are some compensation hikes that have been negotiated. You mentioned inflation, capital funding needs. I mean, water mains, infrastructure is what it is. We can wish that it's newer and wouldn't break down, but the reality is that you need to upgrade this stuff.
Well, we do, and that's a big challenge when we have so many assets. I mean, think an analogy that was used yesterday at budget. If you have a few shingles off your roof right now that need repairing, and you delay that, the more you delay that, then rather than a few $100s, you're now talking about thousands of dollars if you keep delaying it. So I thought that was a very good analogy. We have lots of assets like that. But the other piece that's beyond our control, Todd, is that 32% of our taxes that we collect go to the province. That's mandated. We have no control over that. Things like education and supplementary funding and fire service for across the province, 32% of what we collect has to go to the province. So, and the province is rich. I mean, all this growth is taking place in our province and our municipality. The order of government that benefits the most from that is the province. And, I don't begrudge them for having, full pockets. But, that could be a way that could help with the reducing our taxes, not having to give such a large amount to them.
The municipality gets some of that back, though, does it not, by way of services within its boundaries?
Oh yeah, without question. Yeah. I'm not saying we shouldn't give money to them, but I mean there's an opportunity to examine. And I know my colleagues and the mayor is looking at a number of things that how do we get this amount down for sure.
Okay, so again, where everybody comes before council rather, and states their case as to why they can't sacrifice $1 and compelling arguments, I'm sure. So how do you determine who gets the no and who gets yes?
Yeah, that's really tough, but it truly is. As counselors, for example, tomorrow I'm going to be bringing up the Halifax Forum.
Yeah,
that's almost $110 million. And look, Hensby and I are probably the biggest hockey fans or sports nuts on council by far, and I love hockey. But $110 million to replace that forum. And your listeners, don't get excited. We do need to replace it because we probably have a window of opportunity of maybe 2 years. If we don't make a decision, if we don't progress on that, they're going to shut the place down because it's literally falling down. So, but does it have to be a $110 million project to do that? Can it be a different type of design? And those are the questions I'm going to bring forward. A good example was the Windsor Street Exchange. The decision that was made just not long ago. The rising cost of that project, and then realizing the design they brought forward wasn't what we're trying to accomplish. Now, some people don't like that. They would have preferred to have done something to help alleviate the stress and pain of traffic there. But you're going to invest all that kind of money. Why don't we get it to more closer to what we want to do? The forum is the same situation, so I'll have lots of questions about that. There's heritage status assigned to that forum project, which constrains what we can do on the site. So, there's things like that we need to talk about. But yet I'll bring that up, and you'll see in the media, and I'll get the emails of people are saying, don't touch your forum. Well, it's the same thing for every major project that we have. But we do have to look at tightening our belts as much as possible.
All right, Halifax, is it still 3% going into Halifax?
Yeah, so that was tied in. I think it's 4 years, and then we have to revisit at that point in time. And there's another good example, right, Todd? You could say, well, yeah, that's good, but, right now we're struggling, so let's stop that. But at the same time, on the other side of that, we talked about weather, right? The weather changes, climate change is here, right? And so, I know there's some colleagues that are bringing that up also. So, are we prepared to adjust that? I think we're committed to where we are, and my opinion is we should leave that alone. But there are things that we should be looking at and challenging and maybe reducing. There's things we should be pausing.
How about the assessment cap? I receive emails regularly from people who feel that it's unfair, the assessment cap. And what are your thoughts on that? I know that it's probably not something that, and I think that'd be the province that would have the jurisdiction over that, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. When Premier Houston was first running for the leader of the opposition, he and one of his colleagues came in to chat with a number of us. I spoke to him, and he asked about the cap. The cap is provincial by far. It's fair and it's unfair, right? So you think about the streets that you live on, and if your home has a cap on it, that's very helpful to you and your family. Yeah. If someone buys the house next to you, that person doesn't receive a cap. I think about my kids. My kids are 30 and 26. And, their first home is going to be a challenge. They could have the exact same home as me on the same street, but pay a different amount. So there are seniors that I think of that the cap is very helpful to. But I think of the new home buyer, it's not so favorable. And it is a provincial responsibility. The Premier has stated that they're not interested in looking at that at this point in time.
Okay, just quickly, before I run out of time, I wanted to ask you about this story I saw on the CBC website, and I'll read the headline. Halifax staff suggests city and police should apologize for the 2021 encampment evictions. Errors were made that put people in precarious positions that caused harm, says a staff response. So this is all stemming from an independent civilian review from a team of Toronto lawyers. Just give us kind of the quick on this one, if you will.
Yeah, real quick. First of all, August 18th, I remember it very well, and it's something I will not forget. It happened on our watch. We got national attention for the wrong reasons. And there were a lot of mistakes made on that day. There were mistakes made by police. There were mistakes made by HRM. Understand, Todd, this whole homeless at that level is new to us. We've always had homelessness at HRM, but not at the volume and those numbers that we had at that date and we still have today. We didn't have any expertise around this. And the mandate is the province to take care of homeless. They were slow, so to respond, I give them credit today. The province has really stepped up in the past 8 months, by far, really stepped up, and we need them to continue that path. But on that day, police made mistakes, HRM made mistakes, the CAO that day made mistakes, the province made mistakes. We had a lot of people that showed up to protest with the best intentions of doing that in a safe manner and a peaceful manner. There were some protesters, though, that were there to fight. We had a leader of the opposition that was there with his blowhorn, inciting people by chanting, we need homes, not cops, and getting people riled up. It was on my watch. So we're going to apologize, ask for an apology. Let's round everybody up and let's all apologize. It wasn't just the police. Police made mistakes and they made changes already. And the report says about more changes. And so, if you know better, you do better.
So what's the end game of an apology?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, just acknowledge that it was wrong, and then we're going to do better. And we've already shut down, 3 different encampments since that time with 0 incidents because we've learned from that incident. We realize that people have to have options. We realize that police should only be there as a last resort. That we need engagement from the province. We need engagement from the municipality. So I think it's acknowledging that we did it wrong and we have to do it better. My only thought is we shouldn't be just asking police to apologize. We should be asking all those groups to apologize. And I'll be the first one to step up and say, I'm sorry it happened on my watch. Okay,
Tony, appreciate your time. We'll talk again.
Great. Last thing, no booing on the national anthems. That's my take.
All right. Take care, pal.
You go to a hockey game, you say the ref sucks. Well, maybe Trump sucks. That's the chance. Cheers.
All right. Take care. Tony Mancini, Deputy Mayor District 6, Dartmouth East, Burnside. It was World Cancer Day, February 4th, and we'll talk about this when we come back. All right, February 4th was World Cancer Day. The Canadian Cancer Society partnering with the Angus Reid Institute to unveil a survey on financial impacts of cancer in Canada. Joining us to discuss all of this is Heather Mulligan, Senior Manager, Advocacy and Strategic Initiatives with the Canadian Cancer Society. Heather, thanks for joining the show.
Good morning, Todd.
All right, so obviously cancer is a scary thing for a lot of reasons. But financially, it's pretty scary as well, right?
Absolutely. We live in a country with universal health care, and cancer still comes with a bill. Cancer diagnosis brings massive out-of-pocket costs, like prescription drugs or supportive medications to manage symptoms and side effects, home care, assistive devices, travel for treatment, accommodations. Also, all of these costs that, we would hope would be covered or not, all while living on reduced incomes from taking time away from work, either the patient themselves or their caregiver, to be on a journey of wellness. And so what we learned in our survey findings is that 81% of working age Atlantic Canadians said that they would struggle to, under the financial weight of these out-of-pocket costs, to continue to save for their financial futures, like retirement. And then actually they're taking from their savings, they're taking from their RSPs, they're taking from their retirement in order to pay for the financial reality that they're dealing with their cancer diagnosis.
Yes, and look, I suppose if you're in a time of need and you have resources, you're going to use what you need to use, right? I mean, that's just that's going to trump whatever retirement looks like if you need to take care of yourself in the here and now. That's fully understandable.
Absolutely. But also, we talk a lot about affordability, broadly speaking, when it comes to things like housing, when it comes to things like cost of living, gas prices. It dominates many of our conversations. That financial crisis, that cost of living crisis is also happening at the same time as this continued out-of-pocket and reduced income crisis that cancer patients are facing. In December, we partnered with Statistics Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada to put a number to what is the cost, the financial burden that a cancer patient and their families would experience. And what we learned is that on average, a cancer patient will face nearly $33,000 in costs related to their diagnosis, both in a combination of out-of-pocket costs, which, again, are things like prescriptions, things like travel, things like accommodations, supportive devices, but also reduced income. And these things are not luxuries. These are necessary and essential to care. So right now, our patients are feeling the weight not only of our current affordability and financial crisis, but also the cost that comes with a cancer diagnosis.
What role does government have, and what role can government play in all of this?
Well, certainly we know that government can do more. In the survey that we did with Angus Reid Institute, we learned that only 3% of Atlantic Canadians believe that it's the patient themselves that should be responsible for these costs. The majority, 31%, believe it's the role of provincial government to step up and to provide more comprehensive support. During the most recent election here in Nova Scotia, we put forward several ideas of really effective, efficient ways that government could provide tangible support. Things like introducing a refundable caregiver credit to support and provide the caregivers that really are the backbone of our healthcare system, giving them the credit that they deserve for not only the care that they provide their loved one, but also the cost savings that they give to our health system. Things like reevaluating some of our core programs. We have a program called BTO, which supports overnight accommodations and travel and ostomy supplies. It hasn't been reviewed in many years, and the income threshold is quite low. In fact, several of our Nova Scotia programs meant to help with these out-of-pocket costs haven't been evaluated in some time, and the income threshold or the income cutoff is anywhere from $30,000 to $35,000 household income. Nearly less than 10% of the Nova Scotia population has a household income of $35,000 or less. And so these programs are underused because there's not enough people who qualify. So we need to really look and be critical about what are we offering, what are our supports, but also what are the gaps between what is covered by our public health system that is required for care, what may or may not be covered by private insurance, and how does the province meaningfully fill those gaps?
Yeah, and of course, there are things that people can do proactively when they're healthy and young, like a critical illness insurance policy, things like that. There are steps that you can do to help protect and cover yourself.
Absolutely. There are ways, if you're lucky enough to have an employer that will do those things, or you have the means to do that. Yeah. And certainly, again, this comes back to the conversation around universal health care and the role that the healthcare system plays. When we get sick, we don't expect debt to be the side effect of a cancer diagnosis. But we're learning more and more that is the case because the gaps between what is covered by healthcare, what is covered by private insurance is growing, and these out-of-pocket costs remain. And we know that right now in Canada, patients and caregivers are shouldering 20% of total cancer care costs across Canada, $7.5 billion that they are shouldering. That is going to increase to $8.8 billion within the next 10 years. And so something needs to change. We need to look at the way that we are supporting our patients at their time of need and really make sure that our healthcare system is responsive and nimble in responding to the evolving needs, but also the evolving treatment, how treatment's delivered, and what the financial supports patients require, because they shouldn't have to deal with debt and take from their financial futures to pay for their current cancer diagnosis.
Heather, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, take care. Heather Mulligan, Senior Manager, Advocacy and Strategic Initiatives at the Canadian Cancer Society. African Heritage Month 2025. We'll talk about this when we come back. Now, Twila Grosse is the African Nova Scotian Affairs Minister here in Nova Scotia and joins me for a chat. Minister, thanks for doing this today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, so African Heritage Month. Tell us all about what some of the things that we have planned as the province for this.
Well, certainly. We had our official launch for African Heritage Month on January, that was the provincial launch on January 22nd. And this year's theme for African Heritage Month is Legacy in Action, celebrating Black Brilliance. And there are a number of different events, planned, such as there's things like exhibitions, there's galas or celebration, there's, educational events. There's also something that's very interesting. There's going to be a panel discussion, and that's on the 15th with regards to the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes. Mm-hmm. And there's also a discussion with regards to Black museums and the effort to preserve African Nova Scotian history. There's various events through the entire province, but those events that I just mentioned were basically Halifax, but throughout the province there's proclamations and there's different events, celebration, and educational teaching moments.
Yeah, and we've got an extremely rich history here when it comes to African Nova Scotians and Black culture in this province, and I'm not sure that it gets talked about enough or enough people know about it, and hence what the purpose of the month and what we're talking about now. But I think that education is always a good thing, right?
Oh, education is always a good thing because, African Heritage Month allows us a time to reflect, to celebrate, and importantly, like you say, educate. And it honors, the contributions, of African Nova Scotians and also people of African descent, in our province. And our goal is really to amplify the voices, the stories, and impact of African Nova Scotians while continuing to work towards, of course, fairness and representation.
Do you think that we're making decent strides when it comes to representation and fairness, or obviously we still have a long way to go?
We are making strides, but as you noted, Todd, there's a ways to go. But events like or African Heritage Month, again, that helps, as I noted, to amplify the voices and the stories. So this does help, and the fact is we are making strides.
Okay, what when it comes to government and representation at government, obviously we'd like to see more representation from the Black community. How do we do that?
Well, one of the things is, of course, there's challenges. We do acknowledge that, but there have been a number of collaborations, with community leaders, and they've led to programs such as the African Nova Scotian Housing Initiative, and that whole project or initiative is aimed at increasing access to affordable housing for Black-led community, housing and supporting and support ownership opportunities. Also, a big initiative too is Land Titles Initiative, which is aimed at helping African Nova Scotians in historic communities secure legal ownership of their land. So there are some things done there, in education and in business. There are there's challenges, but as a government, we continue to do our best, make every effort to actively address them.
All right, let's talk more about land titles, because this is something that I think is important. Tell us about land and Black communities and who owns the land, and give us some of the history of that, if you will.
Well, with regards to land titles, in terms of African Nova Scotians and historical African Nova Scotian communities, this Land Titles Initiative it covers 5 communities, and the idea of it is there to make sure that individuals have clear title to their property, because in a lot of cases they didn't have clear title, and of course, without clear title, that stops development, that stops them from getting necessary funds, mortgages, or whatever. And so the whole idea of this is to give them clear title to their land. Right now, this initiative is in 5 communities, and those are the communities of North Preston, East Preston, Cherrybrook, Lake Loon, and also the Guysborough or the Tracadie, Annikanish area. Right now, that's where those initiatives. And what this does, it provides free legal surveying and administrative support so these individuals can, obtain title to their land.
Okay, how much of a challenge is it in order to make this happen? It's going on. I mean, there is definitely that's happening because, again, like I said, I mean, we're providing support, financial support for surveying and administrative support to help this happen. So it is happening. Okay, so if individuals are interested in this, how do they apply for it? What's the process? Well, yeah, there is a process, and they're, yes, they're out in community and they're talking to, individuals. So there is a process, and that's well noted. And so individuals in those communities are definitely aware of the process. Okay, policing has been a long-standing issue with the African Nova Scotian community and the Black community, and we know that the Wortley report and street checks, and there's been apologies from the RCMP and from HRP as well. What are your thoughts on the relationship between police agencies, police bodies, and Black communities? It's something that's developing. I mean, there have been, yes, there's an acknowledgement that there have been issues, that there have been concerns, but I think it's something that's being addressed, and you know what? And we continue to work on. I mean, it's a process, and we continue to work on it. Okay, so continue to work on it. What I guess, again, back to the question, is progress being made? Are things improving, I suppose, is the question. Well, that's things, the goal is that things will improve. I can't really, answer that because some of these initiatives and these, they've been put in place. So, we'll look at the feedback. We'll see where that's going. Okay, Minister, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We'll talk again. Okay. And I just want to say that, with regards to African Heritage Month, I encourage everyone to participate in the events planned this month and, to support Black-owned businesses and take the time to learn about the rich history of African Nova Scotians. Thank you very much. Indeed. Todd. Okay, take care. That's African Nova Scotian Affairs Minister Twila Grosse. We'll take a break. Thanks. All right, before I get to my next guest, give away 2 pairs of Mooseheads tickets. They're hosting the Acadie Bathurst on Saturday. It's the last time Acadie Bathurst will be in town because their franchise is moving to St. John's, Newfoundland. Nonetheless, if you'd like to get a pair of these tickets, be callers 6 and 7 now at 902-405-6000. Again, if you'd like to see the Mooseheads host Acadie Bathurst, Titan, on Saturday night, 2 pairs of tickets, 902-405-6000, and good luck. All right, joining us now for a chat is Leigh Vanderloo, Scientific Director at ParticipACTION. Hello, Leigh.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Indeed.
So February is Heart Month. I was not aware of that. So Heart Month, and there's always lots of things to talk about surrounding that, and obviously Heart Month is critical for a lot of reasons. There are chronic conditions out there, including high blood pressure and heart disease, and risks go up. There are certainly things we can do about it, though, in order to mitigate these risks, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when it comes to anything to do with the heart, anything we do, whether it's in a positive or negative direction, is cumulative. So even if you're new to getting active, just taking that first step, pun intended, in terms of trying to get that activity is going to push forward, threefold in terms of not only strengthening the heart, the muscles, and the amount of blood we have pumping to all the necessary vessels, but it's also going to ensure that we're preventing all of those, negative effects that you just mentioned. So high blood pressure, cholesterol, our risk for stroke and heart attack. So really it's a win-win in terms of, increasing our heart health, but also decreasing our risk for chronic disease.
All right. What are some simple things that people can do? Because obviously not everybody has the time or the means to go to the gym or whatever. So what are some, bring it down, simplify it for us, if you will. What are some real simple things people can do?
Yeah, so some real simple things in terms of getting active would be, walking is a great example. One, not only it doesn't require really any resources, it's something we don't require a ton of skill to be able to do it. It's something you can do either by yourself, with friends, family members, or loved ones. And it is something that you can start slow and slowly build up, incrementally challenge yourself, whether it's walking faster, adding incline or stairs, or even trying to do a longer distance in a shorter period of time. So those are some great options. And if you are using any form of mobility aid, just the idea of getting out, moving with others is still going to be extremely beneficial. It's still considered physical activity. The next thing would be to really focus on this idea of choosing an activity that you enjoy. So as you mentioned, going to the gym or playing on a sports team. Some people love that and thrive in that environment. Other people, it's not really an environment that they feel the most comfortable, or maybe cost is a factor, or even, accessing from a distance. So this is why, looking for other activities that, as long as it gets your heart pumping and you're moving, you're taking a step in the right direction, whether it's doing snow shoveling, lawn maintenance, just even, housework around the house, throwing on some songs and dancing with your kids and having a little impromptu dance party. Those are some small little things that we can do that we can sprinkle in throughout the day. Parking a little bit further away from the mall or from the office, getting off a transit stop sooner. I know they sound really small and really simple and not really, this brand new idea, but the idea of just finding ways to add a little bit more movement multiple times throughout the day is going to be extremely important and goes above and beyond just thinking, I need to exercise for 30 minutes here and there. I think we want to focus on increasing incidental movement throughout the entire day, because not only is that going to increase our physical activity, but it's going to decrease how much time we have available to be sedentary. And when it comes to heart health, we want to be focusing on both of those behaviors.
Yeah, and I think there's a temptation for a lot of people to go out and go all and to go all Rambo like on it and to get carried away with exercise and to try and do too much, and then people get discouraged, they get tired, they get sore. And that is a roadblock. I think people need to be realistic, I suppose, when setting up goals here.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's typically around this time where we start to see the biggest drop off from people that, set out New Year's resolutions of I want to get more active, because exactly like you said, we tend to bite off more than we can chew. We choose goals, or we set in goals that are just extremely, extremely ambitious. And while, it's great to have those goals, we need to think a little bit more realistically and what's achievable. We still want to be challenged, but it really should be a stepwise progression, especially if you're new to physical activity and exercise, or if you're returning after injury or illness. We want to start small and incrementally start building up and building in consistency. That's what's going to help build habits. That's going to help ensure more longevity and sustainable behavior change, which is what we want with something like physical activity. So going back to that earlier point around cumulative effects on our heart. And then it's also more likely that we're going to opt for something that we enjoy, because if you don't enjoy it, the likelihood of you returning to it, if you're always feeling uncomfortable, if you're always dreading it because it's just too much, too fast all at once, it's going to be much easier for us to walk away from it. So when we're thinking about building sustainable behavior change, you want to start slow, opt for something that you enjoy and can see yourself doing over and over again. And then secondly, choose a time of day that works the best for you. So we hear a lot about, the best time to work out is first thing in the morning or before we've ate or between lunch. Really the best way, especially if you're new to movement, is the time that you know that you can consistently keep that time for yourself. So if the mornings are too hectic with, kids, family, drop off, getting to work, or maybe you have a longer commute, maybe that's not the best time because you're going to have consistently a number of different barriers or things coming up. So that's where I would opt for, can you do something throughout the day, like have 2 10-minute walking breaks or take a standing meeting? Can you do something over the lunch hour, right after work or right after dinner? Think of whatever time, and it could be different for every single individual, but we want to really focus on consistency and kind of get rid of that all or nothing. So even if you plan to do a 40-minute workout or to do, a Peloton class or something like that, and, you have to go pick up your kids after work, rather than just kiboshing the entire thing, keeping that commitment to yourself, valuing that behavior and saying, you know what, I can't do the full 40 thing, but I could squeeze in 10 minutes to walk the dog right after dinner. At least you're maintaining this consistency of moving a little bit more every day rather than just scrapping it all together.
And I suppose also you can't be too young or too old to consider these things, right?
No, absolutely. You're never too old. There's never a point where you're like, oh, what's the point? It's too late. There will always be benefits to be gained at every age point. Obviously, something is better than nothing. More is always better. But when we're thinking about healthy aging across the lifespan, there are benefits to be gleaned at every single milestone. So as we start to get older, moving more is not only going to ensure that we're able to age in place independently, stay home longer. It's going to help increase our sense of belonging and decrease feelings of loneliness and isolation. It's going to help with preventing cognitive decline, so decreasing our risk for dementia and Alzheimer's. It's going to help prevent a number of different types of chronic disease, and it's also going to help prevent trips and falls, which again, as we start to get older, that becomes a major concern, not only for the aging individual, but for family members as well. So really, it can't go wrong in terms of start now, start whenever. If you're new, it's okay. It's never going to be lost time, and there's always going to be benefits that you're going to gain from moving.
Yeah, and setting a good example as a parent for your kids is also massively important. I would bet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a number of different reviews that have been done in the literature examining, parent-child dyads or groupings in terms of what's the effect. And we know that providing positive prompts, providing, driving your kids, attending their sport or physical activity sessions, talking about it as a family to say like, hey, we, the Vanderloo family, really value moving our bodies, and this is why it's important, particularly if you have young girls. It's really important to do that because we know that the drop-off for sport and physical activity engagement decreases with age more so than with boys. But what we found that one of the strongest predictors of having physically active children is if the parents are active, but more so if you co-participate. So if you get active together, whatever that might be, there's a very positive impact not only on the child themselves, but the parents as well. So it's that co-participation that's especially key.
Okay, and if people want to know more about all of this, they can check it out on your website, no doubt?
Yeah, absolutely. All of our resources, videos, printables, everything is available on our website, ParticipACTION.com, in both French and English. Check us out on social. We're always putting out new content, different tips and tricks, staying appraised on the literature. And if you ever have any questions, please reach out and engage with us. We're happy to provide some additional resources to help you get started on your physical activity journey. Okay,
Leigh, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care. Leigh Vanderloo, Scientific Director at ParticipACTION. All right, now the question that I posed earlier, I'll ask it again. To boo or not to boo? That is the question. Canada and the United States are set to battle in women's hockey during a tense time that has seen fans boo the singing of the American anthem at sporting events. The two nations will face off tonight in Halifax, of course, as part of the rivalry series, a 5-game series put on by Hockey Canada and USA Hockey that wraps up Saturday in Prince Edward Island. The Halifax match, the first in Canada since the series began in November, will be played at a time when political tensions between Washington and Ottawa reach new highs. So, if you were attending, and if you are attending this game tonight, And when the Star Spangled Banner is being performed, or however it's done, will you boo? And I would ask and admonish you not to. I would say show some class. I don't see any point in booing during the national anthem for a lot of reasons. But listen, this is the question that I'm asking you. Maybe you think that you're justified in doing so and think that it's completely appropriate. 902-405-6000. That's one of the things you can talk about, or whatever else you'd like to get into. Again, 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back. All right, what is on your mind today? 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. You can get into whatever you'd like, but one of the things that I'm asking you is the question, to boo or not to boo? That is the question. Obviously, a play on words with a little bit of fun there. In case you didn't catch that one, I'm sure you did. Anyway, to boo or not to boo, that is the question, and it's all about booing at hockey games or sporting events, because tonight, here in Halifax, the first in Canada, the two nations will face off, U.S. and Canada, in the rivalry series, a 5-game series put on by Hockey Canada and USA Hockey that wraps up tomorrow, or Saturday rather, in Prince Edward Island. And obviously it comes at a time of high tension between Canada and the United States with the tariff war and the trade and all of this. We've been talking about this. And people have been booing the Star Spangled Banner, and I've heard Canada's been booed a bit as well in the United States. And my admonishment would be to not boo and show some class. And look, in the end, what are you achieving when you boo tonight if you go to this game and you decide to boo the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner? What are you hoping to achieve? Are you hoping to make the players feel bad? Are you hoping to make the performer feel bad? I mean, none of these people had anything to do with any of this. It's a sporting event. It's a hockey game. I don't see any point. I think it's classless. I think it's childish, actually. Maybe you disagree with me, and maybe you think that you're completely justified in doing so, and it's your way of expressing your displeasure. What are your thoughts on this, folks? 902-405-6000. You can get into that or anything else you'd like to talk about, of course. Again, 902-405-6000. Let's kick it off with Jim. Hello, Jim.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm well. You?
I'm great. I love your show.
Thank you.
I would love to tell you that I agree with you 100%. I am a martial art instructor. I have been on both sides of that. And I think if you're going to boo them, I would love to see the team that gets booed just to get up and walk away. What the hell are you booing them for? They didn't do anything. They've worked hard to go to give you a show of their great expertise and their experiences and how hard they worked to become what they got. And you guys are going to be disrespectful and boo them? I think anybody that boos should be kicked right out of the place.
Well, I don't know about kicked out, but I mean, obviously, people are free to express themselves. But I take your point. I mean,
yeah,
look,
it's totally wrong though. Like the kids had nothing to do with this. Donald Trump said Yahoo. Yeah. Right.
And the performer certainly had nothing to do with it.
Exactly. So what did they do if they walked out? If they walked out, you wouldn't have anything to perform, right? So why are you going to boo them, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you're a no. So you're a no to booing tonight.
I'm a 100% no to booing.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Another Jim. Hello, Jim.
Morning, Todd. How you doing?
Well, you?
Good, thank you. Good. It's a good question. I don't usually go to the hockey games and stuff, but of course, international events all over the world, it's always been patriotic to stand there and sing the anthem. But just to address your specific question, I have no problem booing the opposition when they come on the ice or on the basketball court. In a sporting game, that's fun. Boo,
sure.
Boo, boo.
Sure,
that's no big deal.
Yeah.
Now we have a special time. It's a whole new ball game. I wouldn't recommend booing the Americans tonight. But I would certainly recommend that if you're a Canadian, for example, if I was standing next to an American fan or a Canadian fan, and they're playing the anthem, and this person starts to boo the anthem, that's their right in Canada to do that. It's a great freedom we have of expression. Fill your boots, buddy. Doesn't mean I have to start a fight or disagree with you. But I would hope in the same token that when they sing the Canada anthem, this guy or this person is screaming their lungs out louder than normal. So I guess my recommendation would be, if you're going to be at anywhere from now on singing our national anthem, instead of just removing your hat, let's sing our hearts out, because that's what we are.
Sure.
So that's the way I feel about it. I would not be objected if somebody booed the national anthem, if they sang the American anthem, because that's their right to do that. But I would certainly turn to them and say, okay, next time let's sing that Canada anthem even louder. And that's what we should be doing. Every event now where there's an American national anthem or whatever, let's sing ours more than what we normally would.
Yeah, that makes sense.
More class.
Yep.
And and our reputation across the world is exactly that. The Americans started singing the national anthem, I understand. They always bring out the Marines or the Navy or a military person because they're honoring their armed forces and their freedom and all that kind of stuff. That's where that came from. But Canada, scream our lungs out for Canada. Boo the opposite team. Who the hell wants them to win anyway? But be prepared to sing Canada loud and clear.
Yeah, makes sense. Good call. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Ibrahim, hello.
Yes, hello. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Good, thank you. So I'm just calling there. My name is Abraham. Yeah, I'm from Gaza, actually, and Palestine. And just the reaction of what Donald Trump has been out there trying to say. I don't know about this guy, but obviously he's trying to take over everybody's land. You know what I mean? He's starting off here first in Canada, then he wants Mexico, and now his eyes on Palestine. You know what I mean? And I don't know how far he really want to go, but all I know, I have family in Gaza, and that's definitely going to be a refusal for them to leave off their land. And I don't know how they're even allowing him to even say all that stuff. You know what I mean? That he just, whenever he wants something, he just literally demand it, and he want to take it. So, I mean, there's a lot of Palestinians that live here in Canada or U.S. and so on, definitely don't approve what he is saying. And, I mean, it's really outrageous for us as Palestinians to hear that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming out from a president, you know what I mean, that really want to take the whole world.
And of course, it's nonsensical. It would never happen anyway, right? Obviously, it's ridiculous.
You know what? I'll tell you right now, it definitely would never happen, and the Palestinians there will never leave the land, no matter even to the last living being there.
I'll bet. Okay, thanks, Abraham. Appreciate the call. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right, 902-405-6000. Tony, hello.
Hello, Todd. Oh, I screwed up. I was going to call you Boo-Boo. Listen, why don't we make this easy? When you're playing in Canada, the game's playing in Canada, and it's an American team or whatever they're playing, a Czechoslovakian team, whatever the case, play the Canadian national anthem. Play Oh Canada. Don't play any other national anthem. It's not needed.
Right.
Well, what does that prove to play another country's national anthem? That you're recognizing the country, you're recognizing its players, or it's just, in this case, inflaming a problem that's just recently, and I believe that it's recently arisen, in the United States, play the U.S. national anthem, and don't play the Canadian national anthem or the Czechoslovakian or German or whatever the case may be. It's not necessary. That would certainly solve the problem. I want to make another point, Todd, while I'm saying this. You know, why as a permanent resident, an American citizen, would I go to that game tonight to be in jeopardy? You know, there's people that are indicating that we should have Jesus, I lost my train of thought. We should have markers on our back and that we're a fair game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of people here that are American, Canadian dual citizens. There's a lot of PRs here. I don't know the exact numbers anymore. We quietly live our lives. We live in neighborhoods. We've lived in neighborhoods for years. We pay our taxes. In some cases, we contribute to the well-being of our neighbors in the neighborhood. And you want to boo us? You got a guy that wants to get in the ring with us. He wants to get in the ring with us. I suggest that he form a goon squad since he's an ex-cop, and of course he was a mayoral candidate, and he should round up all of us and give us choices: internment camps, pick strawberries, or get out of Canada. And that's all I got for you, Todd. Thank you for the.
Tony, let me ask you that question. Do you feel as though that Americans are like yourself living here are being unfairly targeted or getting perhaps unfairly treated?
Now. That's not the right question. Unfairly targeted. Unfair. You have people that call you a show that I happen to know are Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. I'm not a Trump supporter. It doesn't matter. That's between us. It doesn't matter. Why, if you're going to allow us to live here, if you're going to allow us to pay taxes, if you allow us to be a good member of the community, do you have to point your finger at us? Mm-hmm. Why should we have targets on our backs? The question you asked me is, I'm not trying to be a shithead here, Todd, but it's somewhat of a gaslight question. I don't feel comfortable anymore. I've taken my flag, the U.S. flag down. I don't wear any paraphernalia anymore, and I don't go out much anymore. Unfortunately, being on your show, I have a recognizable voice, and some people come up to me and say things that are good or bad. Yeah. They ask me the very same question. The first question is, what do you think of Trump? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have an answer for that for you right now. Yeah. I don't have an answer for that. So with the national anthems, why make a sporting event? These are young people who are performing, and we have to make them a focal point of this issue that is well above their heads. I don't know why we would do that.
Well, that's why I'm raising the question, Tony, and that's why I'm saying I think it's ridiculous that people would go out and boo the national anthem. I think it's silly. I think it's childish.
You want to boo the team when the game, if they score a goal?
Yeah, that's one. That's different. That's right. Or the officials.
It's on the ice. It's the game. Yeah. When you start making this an international issue, that's pretty petty, Todd. Yeah. That is really petty.
Yeah, well, that's that. I agree with you, and that's why I'm raising the question. I'm hoping that it does not happen tonight. This is part of why I'm doing this, Tony.
Well, you're hoping against hope. You know that. There'll be the one handful of people who've had a few beers and have decided that they're going to boo the Americans. You know, I'm not overwhelmed by that. I do fear for my well-being, if you want to know the truth, and my wife's well-being. Mm-hmm. I do. I really do.
Wow.
We're elderly. And, you know, we are Americans, and, you know, in some cases we are out front in the community. And so I do fear for myself, my health, well-being, my property, my wife especially. I'm telling you right now, and I'm going to tell you there are Americans in the HRM and throughout the province, and probably in Canada as a whole, that are also fearing for their well-being, who have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who have nothing to do with this.
Okay, Tony. Thanks for the call, pal. Appreciate it.
Have a great day. Thank you.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. You can get into whatever you'd like, but one of the things that I'm asking you is to boo or not to boo. That is the question. The women's hockey game tonight, the rivalry series, a 5-game series between Hockey Canada and the United States. This is the first game since all this happened here in Canada with this tariff war. And I am asking Haligonians to show some class tonight and not boo. I think it's childish. I don't think it serves any purpose. I don't think it solves anything. But listen, to each their own. Everybody has the right, I suppose, of freedom of expression. I get that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree or disagree? 902-405-6000, that or whatever else you'd like to get into, of course. Kylie, hello.
How are you, sir?
I'm well, you?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm not too bad. I kind of agree not to boo. I mean, like the buddy said, though, I think there's going to be some people drinking there probably. There's always a small percentage of crazy cake ringers or whatever. But anyways, I wanted to talk about this, the counselors and stuff. The Toronto mayor makes $220,000 a year. The Premier, Doug Ford, makes $208,000 a year. And he gets his taxes from 3 million people. We're paying our mayor close to $220,000 a year. It's close to $20,000 a month for a city this size. It's just like Toronto councillors, their average councillors, like their ward is 110,000.
Yeah.
I mean, we have wards down here, Todd, that are 30,000.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see those guys have an itinerary, what they do during the day. Because when they bumped it up from 12 to 16 on their own, like they do the raises, which is just unbelievable, they can give themselves raises. I mean, any other outfit, I worked at the Nova Scotia Hospital, you'd have to have an inquiry to see if they're overworked, how much they're doing, what they're doing, but they don't have to write down anything they do all day. And you were right about one thing. When they came in, they were rookies, and they were going to rubber stamp anything that came to them. We got 12 constables making over $200,000 a year. I mean, we can't be paying out this ridiculous. The mayor went from $150,000 in 2012 to $217 when he retired. We're probably paying them $130,000 a year pension. And when you add on 4 counselors, you don't realize like the pensions they're going to add on and add on and add on. And it's just getting to the point, it's just, their raises go up with the tax rate. I mean, and the gentleman they had on earlier talked about the provincial and how much money they had. Well, I'm not for any party, but at least his wage is $208. The premier, so our mayor, there's a freeze on the MLAs. They make $89,000.
Yeah.
The counselors make $103. They're the only people in Canada, the counselors, that make more than the MLAs.
Yeah.
And if you make over $95,000 in Nova Scotia, you make over 97% more money than everybody. And like a lady said the other day, 30% of the people working in Nova Scotia or in Halifax make less than $20 an hour. And they're spending money on, bike pass and downtown, all the money seems to go to Halifax. Like downtown, they're tearing up downtown to put these bikes, and it's just, there's no oversight. I don't want to be on too long, but in Windsor, they have what they call a blue panel. Okay, the mayor had a high raise in Windsor, Ontario. So what they ended up doing was a blue panel of citizens that make a recommendation to the councillor if they want to raise, and they can agree or disagree. And when they want to do something, they got, there should be some oversight to these people, right? Like these wages are just, there's no, like it's just unbelievable, Todd. You look at $250,000 for chief of police, $25,000 a month. Anyways, I don't want to go on and on, but I don't think they're doing anything. I live in North End, Dartmouth. The only thing we got over here is speed bumps. And when they built the bike path coming down I just want to close with this, Wise Road there, they actually congested the Wise Road because you couldn't make a right up to Alvaro Lake. But in Ontario right now, Doug Ford has put a moratorium on bike paths. No more bike paths downtown unless if they contribute congestion at all. That's what he says. And he's taking out the ones that contribute because there's way more people driving cars than bikes. And, we need a guy like Doug Ford to say, enough's enough. He put a freeze on a lot of stuff in Ontario wages. Like I said, he's making $208,000, Doug Ford. And I would have liked to see somebody come in and say, you know what, I'll do the job for $150. But they come in and they get $217,000. He's a rookie. It's going to take all those people a long time to get used to the job. It's just, anyways. And the compensation, 172 it was 172 million went to the sunshine list, and 176 million in compensation. They paid more out for compensation than salaries. When they let these people go, they give them $500,000, $250,000, $250,000 here, I mean, you look at the compensation for some of these people. It's just, they're living in a different world than the people that are working on the street. You know, like if you took the Halifax, the government out of the wage, we'd probably average about 40,000, the average wage in in Halifax.
Yeah.
You know, but we got all these ones $250,000 that are boosting it up to 50,000. Why are we paying our last say? Why are we paying the mayor 4 times the average wage in Ontario?
Okay, Kylie.
You know,
thanks for the call.
All right.
All right, take care.
Bye.
All right, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. Tim, hello.
Afternoon, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Very good. Well, you know, I say this respectfully. I disagree with you. It was a convicted felon that started this fight. 25% tariff still. We're not in any further ahead except a 30-day reprieve. I hope tonight people are loud. They make Canada and Halifax proud, and I hope he can hear us in Washington. I hope he can hear us in Mar-a-Lago. And at the end of the day, if he wants to sit down and talk, there's ways and means of doing that. But at the time, the niceties are over, and I hope people express their opinions as loud as they can. If the Scotia Bank want to be concerned, they could open the doors a half an hour later at 6:30. So any beer that they consume may not be as great. But again, I hope people are as loud as they can be, and I look forward to it.
Well, they can be as loud as they want, but nobody's going to hear it. Trump's not going to hear it. No decision makers are going to hear that.
Well, I can assure you of this. It may be on the news tomorrow morning, and if it's on the news, people pick it up. At the end of the day, people in Halifax are generally polite, respectful, but I think the niceties are done. And, if he wants to be nice and polite, we're happy to meet him halfway. But at the end of the day, I'm all for letting them hear as much as we can hear and, being polite. To hell with that.
Okay, but those, again, the players have nothing to do with any of this. The performer has nothing to do with any of this. They have nobody there has anything to do with any of this.
This is not about the players. This is about sending a message to the President of the United States.
Well, he's not going to hear this message. It's pointless, Tim, in my opinion.
Well, I understand and I respect your opinion. I don't know if he'll hear it or not. Generally speaking, somebody talks to somebody, and this is not directed towards the players or the team. This is simply directed at one person, and that's the convicted felon in the United States that started to pick the fight with Canada.
Okay, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. Let's talk to Fred. Hello, Fred.
Hi, Todd. Wow. I would say don't be an ass, show some class, don't boo. And if you're beside somebody who's going to boo, start singing the Star Spangled Banner, because what they're doing is they're reacting to the musings of a madman that's in a seat of power. He's not only taken aim at various countries and throughout the world, he's taken aim at his own people. Those people are suffering as well. Heck, you just, gave an ultimatum to a whole bunch of federal employees, take this or you're going to be fired? This guy is off his rocker. He's attacked the LGBTQ2S and all those people as well. The transgender, he just finished saying that they weren't allowed to play female sports anymore. He's taken them back to the 1950s and 60s. So why would you, for crying out loud, support something like that? It's just wrong. Secondly, they should take the national anthem out of the NHL, out of the NBA, and reserve it for things like the Olympics and tonight.
Yeah, okay. All right, Fred, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. And again, some people would say, they don't want to, they would miss the national anthem at sporting events. You wouldn't miss it. After one time, you'd forget all about it, in my opinion. It would be forgotten so quick. 902-405-6000. Let's see, where are we going next? Let's talk to Jamie. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Todd. I just wanted to weigh in on this clause thing, too. I don't think it has any room in international tournaments. I think we made our point the first couple of NHL games and after this happened. But certainly we have more class in that. We teach our kids in sports to be sportsmen. Like, sportsmanship is big.
Yeah.
To me, this is just an extension of being sportsmanlike by, respecting the anthems of each country and every participant.
And the performer as well, the person singing the song.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Jamie. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. David, hello.
Hi, Todd. Yeah, I just want to weigh on the booing at sports games and say that I agree with you. It comes down to a basic level of respect, but I think on some level it's not really a good look for us. I guess I would excuse it in the first couple days after, the sort of, the recent trade news and all that stuff, just given Trump's comments about Canada being the 51st state and joining the United States. 51st state's kind of derogatory. It's something we used to dismiss ourselves. So, tell it to all the veterans who died in, World War II and World War I. But, yeah, so, I think it was something that was just sort of spontaneous, and it made headlines. We made our point, but I think now it's time to stop. And I just sort of want to add that, the current on CBC, they broadcast from Windsor today, and one of the sort of people who spoke there pointed out that a third of the people in the United States didn't vote in the election, a third of the people didn't vote for Trump, and only a third of the people, approximately anyway, did. So it's sort of, we don't want to make enemies of the people who agree with us and are actually in the majority. So it's just, be careful of overplaying our hand, I guess.
Okay, thanks, David. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Leslie, hello.
Hi, Todd. What I wanted to say, these young women from the States that came up here to play hockey, they're girls or young women. If they go out on the ice and they play their anthem and they get booed, they should just skate off the ice, go in the dressing room, put their civvies on, and get in the bus and go home. Anybody who does boos them like that, they have nothing to do with politics or anything. They're worked very hard to get where they're at, to play hockey, and this is almost an international incident. And so I think it's just people that boo are very ignorant. And, and with the Donald Trump thing, he's wanted to negotiate a new trade deal. This is what this is all about. And Trudeau won't do it. And he has to sit down with the president and talk about a new trade deal. And if they start talks, all tariffs are off for at least a year. And anyway, Todd, I really enjoy listening to you in the morning, except when you get on your Trump derangement syndrome. But love your show. Bye.
Okay, thanks. Take care. 902-405-6000. Let's see, where are we going next? Let's talk to Chris. Hello, Chris.
Good morning, Todd. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I've been doing more listening than talking these days lately. But I got a couple of quick thoughts on this whole sporting goods and the booing and the number one, you keep politics out of sports. It's got no place in it whatsoever. These are athletes, and bottom line is athletes are entertainers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't make policy. They don't start wars. They are here simply to entertain us. And actually, they don't solve world problems. What they do is they take our minds off those problems, if only for a little while. So why bring those problems to a game?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
You're there to be entertained. You're there to forget about everything that's going on in the world. So why bring it in there? Now, very quickly, my second point is, okay, we are Canadians. Let us never forget that. Okay, let's have some self-respect. Never mind the rest of it. Self-respect. We're Canadians. We are viewed internationally as pretty good people. Internationally speaking, we get along with most people. Okay, because of the way we are, because we have manners, because we are accepting, because of the way we are. If we allow this guy, okay, and we, to my mind, we've given him way more traction than we should. It was up to me. We just ignore this guy altogether because that's what he's after, is the attention. Okay? But if we, as a people, if we climb down into the gutter with this guy, then he really has won.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Changed us as a people.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's my only point.
No, I think it's a valid point. I think it's a valid point, Chris, in that if we play into this, then we're making it worse. We're just feeding it. You're absolutely correct.
We're giving him what he wants. And then you watch this guy in all the debates and everything he does, he tries to get the other person to climb down into the muck in the goo with him. And that's what he loves. It turns into a slugfest. You've got to hold yourself above that because, like I said, these guys are entertainers. They've worked their lives. Every athlete has worked hard to get to where they're at. They entertain us. They take our mind off our problems. Don't bring those problems in there.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about.
Interesting. Okay, Chris, thanks for the call.
Yeah, have a good day.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Look, there's a parallel here. When Russia invaded Ukraine, of course, and there was this resistance and some hostility directed towards some Russian athletes, including Ovechkin, of course, with the Capitals, who's going to be a massive record of Wayne Gretzky's. What did Alex Ovechkin have to do with any of that, right? I think there are parallels there. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. We got a first-time caller, and it's John. Hello, John.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm well. What would you like to get into?
I just want to call in about the booing. I think as a nation, we have more class than that. I do agree that people have the right to protest, but I think something like maybe turning your back to the American flag, or if you can take a knee, like a Colin Kaepernick sort of deal, is certainly more, the silence would speak the volume, I think. And I think the eyes of the world are on us. They're not just on the United States, but they're on Canada. And I think we should show them that we have more class than booing at a event, but we also have a right to protest in a democratic country.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, thanks for calling, John. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Let's see, where are we going next? Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Good morning, Todd.
Hi there.
I just wanted to respond, first of all, to the caller that commented on our mayor and civil servants, their salaries. And I have to say, wow, that was enlightening for me and upsetting. Like, I absolutely agree. And I guess my thought was, well, but having the information is helpful. How can we affect that? Like, what? So I feel annoyed by that and frustrated, and I feel like, well, that's just wrong. What can I do to have any say or impact, or you see where I'm going with it?
Yeah, sure. But so why did you find it upsetting? Were you unaware that they were making that kind of money?
Yes, and when I think about the fact that it seems to me, I've heard it spoken many times on your show, that we have really a lot of counselors, many more than many provinces, and we are a small province. It's upsetting because we are a poor province. We're not haves, we're have-nots. And I feel like if you're going to get into that kind of a position, it's wrong that they're raising their salaries, and it's wrong that they're making that kind of money. So, and I guess I'm wondering how do we have a voice in that?
Yeah.
How can we have an impact? How can we affect that? Because if they are able to give it, I would love to hear that from somebody. I don't know if you were able to have anyone on the show at some point. And pardon my ignorance, if there's a very obvious thing that you can do, I'm not aware. So
I think what you're doing right now is one of the things that makes sense, is that you're letting your voice be heard through this show. I think that's what it's all about. You can write politicians. You can send emails to politicians. You can write letters to the editor. You can the bottom line is, Michelle, is there's only so much you can do other than expressing your displeasure. And I do believe that we are overgoverned. When you look at the amount of governance that we have as citizens in a province, to your point, of 1 million people, we have 55 ridings, whatever we have provincially. Federally, we've got however many ridings. We get a Senate. We got all the municipalities. We are just overgoverned, and I think it's just for what we get in return, the return on investment. I think that it's a big issue. It's a big challenge. It's a big problem. How do you fix it? I don't know, though. That's a damn good question, Michelle. But I think what you're doing right now is part of it, is what I would say.
Well, Todd, I think that we are far from alone on this, with these feelings, and that many people in Canada feel we are overgoverned. But many, if for sure, a majority feel that we have a lot of broken systems. And so, I would love to hear maybe more specifically. Okay, how can we truly start having an effect on these things, the small things? And you mentioned writing to politicians and whatnot, but I wonder who specifically even would. So for somebody that, really, and I guess if maybe I'm just going to jump over to what Chris just called and said, and I want to thank Chris for calling and sharing such a mature and positive spin, more helpful spin on our sports and our athletes, and the fact that they're entertainers and that they give us opportunity to give pause and put this other weight out of our mind. And I think that those kind of calls are very helpful. But then I think about one of your callers that called and was very, very angry. And I think it would be nice if we could somehow help that person direct their anger in different ways. And I guess that's where my mind was going. My thoughts were just on that it's great to call in and share. And as a regular listener, I love listening to your show. But sometimes it does make me feel angry, as it does you. Yeah. And I just wonder, if how we could maybe look at making it a bit more of a helpful, not just venting.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Michelle. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. Josie, hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm well. You?
I'm good. I'm just calling to say how ridiculous I think it is the booing at sporting events is. We're all adults. We should act accordingly. I don't know. That's just my point, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So if you were at the game tonight, Josie, and somebody was booing beside you or behind you, would you give them a glance? Would you say anything to them, or how would you respond or react to that?
I'd probably give them a dirty look. I'm the master of dirty looks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I definitely would, yeah. No, I'm a veteran, so when stuff like that happens, I get a little annoyed.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. Hi, Eric. How are you?
Not too bad, Todd. I agree with your callers. I've been listening now for the last 50 minutes, and I agree with your callers. Don't stoop that low to knock these women. They're not coming here to, get booed. They're coming here to put on a show for the people. The only time that I think that people should boo is if the referee makes a bad call or one of the team members takes a cheap shot at somebody.
Sure, yeah.
That's the only way that I see that people booing. And as far as the national anthem goes, you go to a Moosehead games and you hear the guy singing, and then he lets the crowd. I don't think they're going to take that away from the crowd because they're so used to it. I don't know how you feel about it. It's childish and it's outrageous. And what happened? You remember what happened when Philadelphia Flyers played the Red Army?
Yeah,
and the Philadelphia.
I do.
Yeah, and you remember the Goon Squad of Philadelphia because they had that reputation.
Yeah.
Well, the Red Army skated off, and everybody said, "Well, what's going on here?" Well, I don't think people should be humiliated that way. And Americans coming over here, they didn't ask for this. They had nothing to do with this, and I think they'll put on a good show. And if they could drown it out, so be it. But I don't think they should take it that bad.
Okay,
and
thanks.
I'm going to comment on the Super Bowl. Two people are going to dictate the outcome of that game, Mahomes and Barkley, and that's the way I see it.
Okay, pal. Appreciate the call. Take care. Joyce, hello.
Oh, hi. How you doing?
Well, you?
Good. I guess just quickly, people have to remember that these neighbors of ours have come to our aid many times, especially the Halifax explosion, Like, if there was a disaster tomorrow, we know the United States would help us. So you got to put things in perspective. This is happening because of our lame duck Prime Minister and our government. We would have been able to address these situations, but nope, he let it go too long. So if anybody should be booed, it should be him.
Okay, thanks. All right, thanks for the call. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate the calls. I did not get to all of you. For that, I apologize. We'll open the phone lines again tomorrow between 11 and 12. Looking for love in all the wrong places. Romance scams are on the rise. We'll get into this when we come back.
Asked a girl what she wanted to be. She said, baby, can't you see? I want to be famous, a star of the screen, but you can do something in between. Baby,
All right, looking for love in all the wrong places. Romance scams are on the rise. Larry Zelvin, head of BMO's Financial Crimes Unit, joins us to talk about all of this. Larry, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd. Great to be with you and your listeners.
All right, so I guess first and foremost, how prevalent is this? How much of an issue is this?
It's a big issue, Todd. I regret it's one of the most popular scams going, out there right now. And unfortunately, as we get closer to Valentine's Day, it really starts to accelerate. But the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, just using statistics in 2023, said 50 million Canadians had been impacted by romance scams, with about $53,000 lost to each victim. It's only gotten worse.
All right, so tell us about some of the scams.
Yeah, so what happens is folks get online, bad actors, and they look for people who are looking for love. And in many cases, people who are more downtrodden. They may have just broken up in a relationship. They may have lost, unfortunately, a partner or a spouse a long time. And, they've expressed themselves out there, and they're trying to meet folks to kind of fill that gap. And unfortunately, there are bad actors, some of them that are, let's say, in North America, but others in Asia and in Europe that will make this connection. They will start to build a relationship. It'll become romantic. And then all of a sudden, there's going to be a need for money. Somebody's going to be ill. There's going to be a need to go to another location. And there's a ask, can you please send me some money to help me get through this emergency? And that's when the fraud gets committed.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about some red flags here.
Yeah. Look, here's a couple of red flags. First is that when, and look, you shouldn't be afraid to create relationships online or using social media, but there are a few things to look out for. First, if all of a sudden this person really starts to become romantic, maybe a little bit sooner than one would expect, that's a red flag. If they show an atypical amount of empathy, that could be a red flag. If all their interests align to what your interests are, that could be a red flag. I used to tell folks that, look, if you don't have a video, if you're only hearing voice, that was a red flag. But with artificial intelligence or AI, that's changed because now they're actually using video to disguise who they are. But one of the biggest things is if they're not in your geographic area and it's really difficult to always meet, that's something to really watch out for. All those things are red flags, but what crosses the line is when they ask you for money.
Yeah, indeed. And people, obviously, I would think that this is probably greatly underreported because of embarrassment, right?
No, you're spot on. And a lot of folks, it's really a shame because, look, you are a victim. You're a victim of a crime. But, they feel like they've been duped. They are lonely, and now they're feeling even lonelier. They're worried about families or friends making fun of them or not being sympathetic. None of that should be the case. Report it to law enforcement. Report it to your financial institution or whatever means you use to pass that money if it gets to that point, but really get the help because you've been a victim.
Yeah, and like you said, if there's a sense of urgency that somebody is really, really saying that they need money in a hurry, and that is obviously always a red flag, right?
It is, and particularly, Todd, if they're asking you to do it using gift cards, debit cards, things that are instant payment. Because even if you call your bank or whatever financial institution you use, hopefully it's BMO, but it doesn't have to be, it's impossible to recall. If the money goes through credit cards, wires, and you tell us soon enough, we can recall it most times, but not every time. So really be careful when, again, debit cards, gift cards, electronic money transfers, things that, they want to transfer money that way, that's a really good indication you're probably talking to a fraudster.
Indeed, Larry. Listen, appreciate your time. Thanks for the tips, and let's hopefully we did some good and raise some awareness.
Thanks, Todd. Best of luck to you all, and be safe out there.
All right, take care. Larry Zelvin, head of BMO's Financial Crimes Unit. Now I'm going to take a bit of time and read some emails. Got quite a few emails in response to the call-in segment, and it was about the hockey game tonight and booing or not to boo at the women's international game between America and the Canadian team. And, of course, this is all in connection with Trump and the Tariff war, and people have been booing the Star-Spangled Banner at professional sporting events. And look, I understand that people are upset. People are tense right now, and people want to express themselves. But as I've said, I think that it's the wrong place to do it. I think that people could and should show some class and refrain from booing tonight. Nobody there, none of the players, certainly not the performer, anybody has anything to do with any of this. Just my take. And most people who called agreed with what I had to say, but some didn't. And a few emails from people who think that people should have the right to boo. And look, you have the right to. I did not say you don't have the right to boo. I just don't think that you should. That's my take. Anyway, here's an email from Mike. Mike says, if I was at the game tonight, I would not boo the U.S. national anthem. These players had nothing to do with Trump's actions, which is what people think they're booing. Something else that Canadians need to remember, the U.S. political system is very binary and that voters usually only have two choices, Republicans or Democrat, whereas Canadians have up to 6 options depending on where you live. With only 2 choices and only 1/3 of Americans casting a ballot for Trump, it makes no sense to condemn all Americans for him retaking the White House. This one from Phil says, people stay seated during the U.S. anthem. I have no issue with people booing the anthem if they want it. Americans need to know that they don't make all the rules. Let's see, where else do we go here? This one from Tim says, I don't understand why people would boo either. I agree that they are just athletes and that athletes and fans should not be held hostage. Most listeners feel the same. So I am wondering if you and all your listeners support the fact that Russian athletes are banned from the Olympics, hockey, etc. It is the exact same principle. I see a lot of people as hypocrites. So when are you going to get people talking about that injustice? Comes from Tim. And I did bring up the fact that Alexander Ovechkin and Russian athletes were condemned and in many cases criticized and were the brunt of displeasure from many people when the invasion happened. And I think you make a good point. Mark says this. He says, if they booed, then the girls should just get off the ice. No, Mark's calling into question somebody who called with comments who said that if they booed, then the girls should just leave and get on the bus and go home. He says, so the ones causing the problem are not being removed. The ones who worked really hard to get there should leave. What is this all about? And that's a good point. Why punish the players? And that's the point. They had nothing to do with it and have nothing to do with it. Brian says this, I agree. I don't like having to wait for the anthem before the game starts. Get over it, people. Craig says this, put it. I'm just trying to read some of the. Anyway, this one here. Let me see. I'm reading some of these emails in real time, and some of them are not really coherent. Let's see. This one says, I think the booing is so disgraceful, but the bigger question is, why are we still singing the anthem and in schools? I think it's passé and not making us any more patriotic by having to sing this. Anyway, lots of response to this, folks. I would say for the most part, overwhelmingly, people agreed with what I had to say, and I don't take any pleasure in that. It seems to be the reaction. That people going to this game tonight, I would bet if I had to put money on it, I would bet that it won't happen. And if there is some booing, that'll be very sporadic and not much at all. We shall see, nonetheless. It's all about tariffs. It's all about Trump. It's all about displeasure with the United States. And to that, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities emphasizing collaboration with the provinces on U.S. tariff concerns. We'll talk about this when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to chat with Pam Kennedy in our Ask the Pharmacist segment. Pam Kennedy is a pharmacy owner in Bridgwater, owns The Guardian, and if you'd like to ask her a question, give us a call at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. If you've got a question relating to your prescriptions, to your medications, to the scope of practice, to whatever pharmacy-related it might be, 902-405-6000. Pam, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time, of course.
Thanks so much, Todd. Happy to be back.
All right. So what are some of the more common questions that you get asked regularly or you hear get asked at pharmacies? What are some of the most common things that you repeatedly hear?
For sure. I would say right now it's a lot around what pharmacists are able to do. As you know, there's a lot of Nova Scotians without family doctors and nurse practitioners, and so people are curious about how we might be able to provide healthcare services to them. So around, prescription renewals or refills, certainly we get a lot of questions about that, and of course other services that we're now able to do.
Okay, so tell us about some of those services. Expand that scope of practice and how that is advantageous to everybody involved.
Of course. So there's a couple of different things I'll talk about. So number one is around the expansion to community pharmacy primary care clinics. So community pharmacy primary care clinics are now spread across the province. There's more than 40 clinics now in operation. So those clinics specifically are working to the full scope of pharmacy practice within our province. So within those clinics, unlike at all pharmacies in Nova Scotia, we're able to manage chronic conditions. So those like diabetes, asthma, COPD, and of course cardiovascular disease and high blood pressure, as well as public health immunizations. And then for more acute care, things like sinusitis and internal and external ear infections are being managed within these clinics. At all pharmacies across Nova Scotia, of course, it's a lot of the services that maybe more Nova Scotians are familiar with us providing. So things like prescription refills or renewal requests, Lyme disease, so both for prophylaxis, so if you've had a tick bite, and or for actually treating Lyme disease. So there's a number of services that we're able to provide both through your regular pharmacy as well as a more an extended scope of practice through the pharmacy clinics.
Okay, as mentioned, it's your opportunity to ask Pam a question, pharmacy related. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Where do you see it going? Do you see the scope of practice continuing to expand moving forward, Pam?
Yes, and I think that we will see that. I know that the Pharmacy Association of Nova Scotia has a great relationship. We're working well together with the Department of Health and Wellness and with government to see that expansion and utilizing pharmacists within the healthcare system here in Nova Scotia. The government's done a great job stepping up and allowing us to practice to our full scope. And I think you're going to see, obviously some of those decisions are above my pay grade, but I think you're going to see that expansion to other services being provided by pharmacists.
902-405-6000. Again, if you'd like to ask Pam a question, give us a call, 902-405-6000. You mentioned Lyme disease, and this is something that is becoming more prevalent every year, seemingly, here in Nova Scotia. What can pharmacists do? Can pharmacists diagnose Lyme, and if so, what's the process?
Yes, of course. So there's a couple of different things around Lyme. So number one, what maybe more people are more familiar with, what we've been doing for a little longer is if you've had a tick bite, so we can provide an assessment and if necessary, based on certain criteria that we would follow. If it seems appropriate, then we can prescribe antibiotic, what we call prophylaxis. So some preventative antibiotic to try to reduce your risk of that tick bite progressing to Lyme disease. More recently, however, but maybe more people aren't as familiar with, pharmacists are now able to, and this is at all pharmacies, not just within clinics, the pharmacists are able to actually now, again, depending on certain criteria, assess and prescribe for early localized Lyme disease. So again, of course, like if that has become more advanced or more progressed Lyme disease, we would refer outside of our scope of practice, but for early localized Lyme, then we are able to treat that now within pharmacy.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Joanne, hello.
Yeah, hello. This is just a question a little bit about the scope of practice. And I know that pharmacists do more point-of-care testing in the primary clinics. But if I was a patient and went in presenting with a UTI, would a pharmacist automatically give me antibiotics? Or do they do any testing at that point, like urinalysis?
Hi, Joanne. Thank you so much for your question. So we in pharmacy, so again, this is at all pharmacies, not just within the clinic. Currently within scope is uncomplicated urinary tract infections. Now there is discussion around potentially seeing an expansion to that, where potentially urinalysis would be done, but for culture and sensitivity. However, at this point, it's uncomplicated bladder infections, which mean that isn't required. So we do follow prescribing protocols, and so treat uncomplicated UTIs without the requirement for urine samples.
Without a urine test?
Exactly.
You wouldn't test at that point if they presented her symptoms to you?
Correct. So based on symptoms that a patient would present with, of course, age, there's a number of criteria that we would follow, which would lead us to a diagnosis of an uncomplicated bladder infection or urinary tract infection. Now, within those criteria, there are certain things that would then lend to it becoming a more complicated urinary tract infection. And in that case, at this point, that does get referred out.
I see. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Marilyn, hello.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the pharmacist's name.
It's Pam.
It's Pam.
Pam, thank you. Thank you, Pam. I also had a UTI question. If we have somebody in a nursing home who we suspect has a UTI and they have to chase this person around maybe for a couple of days to get a urinary a urine sample to be sent off, and then the whole process takes a couple of days, which is really intensive for the person who's suffering with the UTI if it does come back as positive. Do you at the pharmacy do a dip test to do a quick analysis for an uncomplicated UTI, and would you then prescribe, trying to go outside of the realm of the nursing home red tape that requires a sample and a doctor's note and the time? Is that something that you could expedite for people?
Yeah, obviously I would think within specific sites, so within specific nursing homes, there would be, criteria that would need to be followed. So, not speaking around that. And a lot of, obviously a lot of nursing homes have pharmacies that they contract with. So that might be something to discuss with the pharmacy team that works with this specific nursing home. But again, as long as those criteria were followed, if it's presenting as an uncomplicated urinary tract infection, meaning the patients had them before and they meet certain criteria, then there wouldn't be any testing required, and it may be able to be treated on site as an uncomplicated UTI, so that prescribing could be done. But again, I would probably refer back to the pharmacy that's, in partnership with your nursing home to ensure that would meet the regulations assigned by that home.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Pam, for your time.
Thanks for the call.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care, ma'am.
902-405-6000. Janet, hello.
Yes, hello.
Hi there.
Hi. I would like to ask Pam if it's possible at pharmacy to have a test for possible sinus infection.
Hi, Janet. Yes, of course. So what we would call sinusitis or acute sinusitis is something that we can now treat. So we can do an assessment in pharmacy for that particular condition. So, obviously there's a number of criteria, some things the symptoms, how long the symptoms have been present for. So we'll go through a number of things as part of the assessment to determine if it seems as though an acute sinus infection may be what is happening. And if that's the case, that is now a condition that is one that we can prescribe antibiotics and or other types of medications to help treat.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay,
My pleasure.
thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. It's Ask the Pharmacist with Pam Kennedy. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. We'll be back. All right, it's our Ask the Pharmacist segment with Pam Kennedy, owner of the Guardian in Bridgwater, 902-405-6000. If you've got a question for Pam, give us a call again, 902-405-6000. Joel, hello.
Well, hi, Todd. I'm an Pam. So I'm one of the few people who lucky to have an actual family doctor, but they're retiring soon, and I'm diabetic, and I had a bit of things when I do my tests. And had some delays because sometimes the doctor's ill or whatever. I managed to get something done with the pharmacy, but I just wonder what all other services do you guys actually could diagnose for?
Yes, of course. So I appreciate the question. I'm sorry to hear you'll be losing your position. So diabetes specifically, so within, which area of the province are you in, Joel?
Halifax.
Okay, so you've got a number of pharmacies to choose from there. So there are a number of these community pharmacy primary care clinics in that area. So with diabetes specifically, we can manage that condition. So as far as, making sure that labs are updated, prescription renewals are done, if there is a requirement for a referral to a diabetes clinic. So there is, we do have the ability within the clinic to ensure that condition is well managed. As far as diagnosis, of course, there's a number, and I would encourage you to check out the website. So there's a number of common conditions that we can assess and diagnose. So if you go to the PANS website, so that's our provincial association, so it's pans.ns.ca, and then it's just a backslash to the CPPCC clinics, but you will be able to find a number of common conditions that we're able to diagnose. As far as other conditions, diabetes and high blood pressure are two of the more recent conditions that have been added to our list of more chronic conditions that we're able to diagnose. So yeah, I would encourage you to take a look there because there are a number of things that we're able to assist with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks so
You're
much.
welcome.
Take care. 902-405-6000. D, hello.
Yes, hello.
Hi there.
I have a question about, I'm a long-term sufferer of diverticulosis and occasionally have a flare-up that requires a prescription. Is that something that the pharmacist can diagnose and prescribe?
Yes, unfortunately, no. So with diverticulitis, so that flare-up of the diverticulosis, the antibiotics and treatments required for that do still fall outside of a pharmacist's scope. So in that case, it is best to check in with your if you have a regular provider or if you're being followed by a specialist to have some type of a plan in case of those acute flare-ups.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
No
Dee.
problem.
Okay, Pam, 902-405-6000. Pam, how is it determined what gets expanded when it comes to scope of practice? Is this something that gets pitched by pharmacists? What's the process?
I think it's really been a combination of, government coming to the provincial association and the provincial association going to government. Again, I'm not involved at that level of discussion, but I think there's a number of, stakeholders that go to the table to show what our scope of education allows us to do. And so we've seen since the, COVID vaccine rollout, so within the last few years, that was really the precipice, I think, of government recognizing how pharmacies across our province can really contribute. And, it really opened their eyes, I believe, to see that, we were really being very underutilized in the healthcare system. And so now, they're taking, seeing what we're able to do. And so that, I think that's why you're seeing that list continually grow. So there's a number of things, that I understand are in the hopper and for what may still come down the road. So I think, there's a number of stakeholders, in those types of conversations determining what is going to be added and how we can contribute.
902-405-6000. We got a bit of time left at the top of the hour. Got some open lines for you as well if you've got a question for Pam Kennedy. Our Ask the Pharmacist segment, 902-405-6000. And, of course, the pharmacy team has expanded its abilities as well with pharmacy technicians taking on more responsibility. And that's important, right, that the expertise and the scope of practice expands to your entire team, right?
Absolutely. So it's certainly a team effort, that's for sure. It's been so encouraging and really exciting to see the expansion in scope for pharmacy technicians. So like pharmacist roles have expanded, we've seen that same thing occurring with our technicians. So, technicians see integrated into our clinics. So, a lot of the, point of care tests, for instance, gathering those best possible medication histories when we're doing medication reviews with patients. There's a number of things that a technician can do. Of course, in the dispensary, taking off that technical load from the pharmacist to allow that just more time to provide other clinical services has been integral. And there is talk now within our college to see a further expansion of their role as well. So really, really excited. I am blessed to have amazing technicians that here in our pharmacy. Again, staffing shortages, as we've talked about on the program before, certainly impacting pharmacy, and technicians are not immune to that. So not all pharmacies have had the ability to have technicians working with their teams, but I know the real push and drive from our provincial association and college and government to see the numbers of those professionals expanding. So it's very exciting, but yes, nice to see all roles within pharmacy to their full scope for sure.
Okay, Pam, always appreciate it. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right, you as well. Pam Kennedy, pharmacy owner, Guardian in Bridgwater. That is our Ask the Pharmacist segment, and we do that once a month. All right, a couple of quick stories as we head to the end of the show. A new Angus Reid poll has found the percentage of people in Quebec expressing pride in Canada has increased faster since December than it did in the country as a whole. The online poll of more than 1,800 residents was done Sunday and Monday. The percentage of Quebecers who said they were very proud or proud to be Canadian has risen from 45% to 58% since December. The average increase in nation pride across Canada rose from 58 to 67%. So one of the advantages, I suppose, or the silver linings to all of this whole Trump fiasco and this tariff war, of course, is just that, is that we've got a renewed sense of pride. And look, we stood up for ourselves. And I think it's important that we did that. And obviously, it had an impact. To this, more Donald Trump. Egypt has started lobbying against a proposal by U.S. President Donald Trump that America take over the Gaza Strip so it can be rebuilt. Egyptian officials warned the proposal would put its peace deal with Israel at risk. This comes as Israel says it has started preparations for the departure of Palestinians from Gaza despite international rejection of the idea. The Trump administration has already dialed back aspects of the proposal, saying the relocation of some 2.3 million Palestinians would be temporary. And again, this is just another one of these incidents where you just kind of shake your head and you have to ask yourself the question, what is going on in this guy's mind? How could he possibly think that this is a good idea? And again, some people listening out there would agree with it and think that it's a great idea. But I mean, the complexities of it, the geopolitics surrounding it, the history of the region. I mean, there's so many reasons why it's just a stupid comment and a bad idea, in my humble opinion. A new series starring George Wallace and Laverne Cox is now officially on Prime. Clean Slate stars Wallace as an old-school car wash owner whose child returns home a proud trans woman named Desiree after decades away. He says he loves people, adding it's great to be able to live and let live. Wallace is also the executive producer on the show and says he's pretty receptive, just like his character on the show. There you go. Some entertainment news for you. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate it very much. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass. The control board's doing a fine job. As always, we're back tomorrow, 10 o'clock. See you then.